Coming up on Talking Points, former President Donald Trump is expected to be arrested this week. We'll discuss the reasons behind the indictment and how this could impact his run in 2024.
Plus, the 2024 presidential hopefuls weigh in on the war in Ukraine, why one high-profile Republican statement is causing controversy.
And the state of Ohio has filed a federal lawsuit against Norfolk Southern over the train derailment in East Palestine last month. We'll have more on what consequences the company could face. All that and more, Talking Points starts right now. Former President Donald Trump said Saturday he expects to be arrested in connection with a years-long investigation into a hush money scheme involving adult film actress Stormy Daniels. Good evening and welcome into Talking Points. I'm Jake Morel.
And I'm Ericka. Talking Points senior analyst Olivia Maniscalco has more on the likelihood of this as well as potential repercussions. Olivia?
Thanks, Ericka. On his social media platform Truth Social, Trump posted the following, referring to himself. Leading Republican candidate and former President of the United States of America will be arrested on Tuesday of next week. Protest, take our nation back. Joe Tacopina, an attorney for Trump, stated that he is basing his claims on press reports. The former president did not receive any sort of notification from the Manhattan DA office, but supposedly posted the social media post to highlight his innocence. If indicted, this would be an unprecedented event. Trump would be arraigned in court, but he would not be held in custody or forced to end his presidential campaign. There is nothing in the Constitution that says what to do if a presidential candidate is indicted. If convicted, he just wouldn't be able to vote for himself because he would have a felony on his record. Robert Costello, a former attorney for Trump ally Rudy Giuliani, testified today about the hush money payments. It is not clear whether or not this witness has been the final before an indictment. There is a possibility that another witness could come to the stand to try and refute claims made by Costello. Within hours of the statement, Trump's campaign was sending fundraising solicitations to its supporters. Along with this, influential Republicans in Congress issued statements in his defense. Some notables include Trump's former Vice President Mike Pence and tech investor and campaigning Republican Vivek Ramaswamy. Ramaswamy is claiming the arrest is the Democrats using the police force to arrest its political opposition.
So, Olivia, how would a potential arrest affect his re-election campaign?
Yes, Ericka, there is the possibility that this could help him in the next election. He is likely going to try to garner sympathy from his supporters if he does get arrested. He has already really been hammering the point that the Manhattan DA, Alvin Bragg, is politically biased against him, and this, if he was arrested, this would allow him to so-called, in his eyes, prove this further. When his Mar-a-Lago household in Florida was raided by the FBI, he did get an increase in fundraising, so this could lead to that as well. His rival, Ron DeSantis, said today, quote, "I don't know what goes into paying hush money to a porn star to secure silence over some type of alleged affair. I just can't speak to that." So Ron DeSantis saying this also might turn people towards Ron, because when they hear that quote, they think, oh, the former President Trump allegedly did this, and Ron DeSantis did not.
And Olivia, many are suggesting these comments urging people to protest by the former president are reminiscent of those that led to January 6th. Could we expect an arrest to lead to something even somewhat similar to the insurrection?
Yes, so probably not as big as the January 6th insurrection because nothing really has happened so far. Government agents have been monitoring chatters online, and people are saying that armed protesters are going to try to block law enforcement officers from arresting him in general. But even if this does not cause people to riot at a January 6th level, some other investigations going against him, if anything happens with that could really make that happen, such as he's under investigation in Georgia and by the Justice Department. So even if it doesn't happen now, it could happen eventually.
Senior analyst Olivia Maniscalco, thanks for joining us. The Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade transformed the legal landscape in America regarding how to deal with abortion and abortion-related issues. Talking Points analyst Gustavo Madero joins us now to give us an update on the latest laws states have adopted on the issue. Gustavo?
Thank you, Jake and Ericka. Ever since the overturning of Roe v. Wade last June, the legal landscape regarding how states will deal with abortion has been chaotic and consisting of a race between Democrats and Republicans to either protect or ban abortion. In more Republican states, such as South Carolina, there has been some extremist proposals made to ban abortion. The South Carolina Prenatal Equal Protection Act is a legislation proposed to ensure that an unborn child who is aborted gets equal protection under homicide laws in the state. In South Carolina law, people convicted for murder can face the death penalty or a minimum of 30 years in prison. Therefore, if the bill were to get passed, women could eventually get charged with the death penalty for having an abortion. Yet, in the past few weeks, this legislation, which had 24 co-sponsors, all Republican, has lost its support from 9 of them. However, states like Wyoming and Utah have been able to move forward with their policies against abortion. Wyoming has become the first state to explicitly ban abortion pills. This came after Wyoming Governor Mark Gordon signed into law the nation's first explicit ban on abortion pills, since they became the predominant choice for abortion in the U.S. Wyoming's ban on abortion pills would take effect in July, while pending legal action that could potentially delay that. In the state of Utah, Republican Governor Spencer Cox signed legislation on Wednesday that will by next year ban clinics from providing abortions. This has set a rush of confusions among hospitals, clinics, and prospective patients in the deeply Republican state. However, on the opposite side, there has been states that have rushed to protect abortion rights and the right of women to choose. In the state of Michigan, the Michigan legislature has voted to repeal a nearly century old law criminalizing abortion. The Michigan Senate passed HB 4006 on Wednesday, which revokes the 1931 ban on abortion, less than a week after it passed the State House on March 2nd. This bill specifically repeals Section 750.14, which makes it a felony punishable by up to 4 years in prison or a fine up to $5,000 to administer drugs that induce a miscarriage unless the mother's life is in danger. In the state of California, a state ballot became law before the new year even began. This state ballot consisted of Proposition 1, which expressly guarantees that the state's constitution, a person's fundamental right to choose to have an abortion, and their fundamental right to refuse contraceptives. Yet, California continues to make measures to protect abortion, the most recent one being announcing that it will not renew its multi-million-dollar contract with Walgreens after the company said it would not dispense medication abortion in states where abortion is legal. Walgreens announced its abortion pills decision last week after facing mounting pressure from a group of Republican attorney generals who threatened that the company could face legal action if it sold medication like mifepristone, a common abortion pill in the states. As a result, Governor Gavin Newsom announced the termination of the $54 million annual contract with Walgreens. That is all the time I have for today, and I will update you in the upcoming weeks. Back to the desk.
Thank you, Gustavo. Chinese leaders Xi Jinping and Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin met earlier today in Moscow for a, quote, journey of friendship, end quote. The meeting was set to discuss China's proposed Ukraine peace bill. In the meeting, Xi calls Putin a dear friend. This is the first time Xi has visited Russia since the Ukrainian invasion and securing his unprecedented third term. And the state of Idaho is set to allow firing squads to carry out the death penalty in place of lethal injection drugs when they aren't available. The bill was passed earlier today with a veto-proof majority. Idaho joins the states of Mississippi, Utah, Oklahoma, and South Carolina as the only states to allow the firing squads. The Silicon Valley Bank in California collapsed last week. This has created a ripple effect for the U.S. economy that has caused multiple bank defaults. Jake Morel has more on just how impactful the collapse can be for the economy. Jake.
Ericka, absolutely. The Silicon Valley Bank collapsed just about a week and a half ago. Now, what does that mean? That means the federal government now owns the bank and owns all of their loans, and the bank can no longer operate. And how did this happen? Well, it was a classic run-on-bank situation. That happens very commonly when banks close. That means that all of the investors and the people who took out loans from the bank caught wind of the bank losing money on their investments in things such as U.S. Treasury bonds and anything that they invested in this volatile economy. They caught wind of that and they all pulled their money too fast so that the bank did not have the money to pay back those loans. That means it collapsed and went under. Now, let's take let's take a quick look at some facts from this Silicon Valley Bank collapse. $212 billion in global assets. 85% of those loans were uninsured, according to the FDIC. SVB held funds for several big tech companies in California, and this sent a ripple across the country. We'll take a closer look at that ripple in a bit, but first, let's take a look at some statistics. The largest bank collapses in U.S. history. 2 out of 3 of them we've seen in just the past few weeks. The SVB collapse, that was $212 billion in global assets, as well as the Signature Bank collapse, which was collateral damage from SVB. That was $110 billion in global assets. That is 2 of the 3 largest bank collapses in United States history. And let's take a look at this graph really quick here. The percent of insured bank failures from 2013 to 2023 in the past decade. This is according to the FDIC. Only 1% of them has failed. So not only is this a huge deal, but it's also extremely uncommon. So naturally, we're seeing a big reaction. This ripple in the following week after the SVB collapsed, we saw Signature Bank collapse. That's right here in New York. Like I said, that is now the 3rd largest bank collapse in U.S. history. We saw UBS acquire Swiss Bank. Right here, we could see UBS $1.1 trillion in global assets, acquiring about $500 billion in global assets from a competitor, and that was for only $3 billion. We're seeing market volatility. Not only are the banks reacting, but so are the markets and investors all across the world. We're also seeing a heavy political reaction from both sides, the right and the left. President Biden trying to calm tensions, saying, quote, "Americans can rest assured that our banking system is safe and your deposits are safe." President Biden trying to avoid yet another crisis. Ericka.
Jake Morel, thank you. Coming up on Talking Points, we will break down what the 2024 GOP candidates for president are saying about the Russian invasion in Ukraine. Stick with us.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look.
Welcome back to Talking Points. The field of presidential hopefuls on the Republican side in 2024 is expanding as GOP leaders test the waters on a national campaign. A key issue in the race is the ongoing war in Ukraine.
Recently, many of the possible candidates shared their views on the subject with a cable talk show host. Talking Points analyst Luke Radel is here with the story and reaction from the president on the SU Ukrainian Club. Luke?
Jake and Ericka, the Republican Party is divided on what the U.S. should do about the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. The proof comes from Fox host Tucker Carlson.
Last week, we sent a questionnaire to every Republican presidential candidate, announced and potential, asking about Ukraine.
That's right. 8 presidential hopefuls told the controversial conservative commentator where they stand on the war. And their answers indicate the split in the Republican Party on whether the U.S. should help Ukraine fend off the Russian invasion. Former President Donald Trump told Fox, quote, "If I were president, that horrible war would end in 24 hours or less." A big promise from someone who once wrote in 1987's Art of the Deal, quote, "A little hyperbole never hurts." Notably, Trump says he does not believe opposing Russia in Ukraine is a vital national strategic interest, a position that he shares with his biggest primary rival. Though he's not yet declared his candidacy for president, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is likely to make a run for the top job. DeSantis is polling neck and neck with Donald Trump in early primary states. Here's what he had to say to Tucker Carlson.
While the U.S. has many vital national interests, DeSantis writes, securing our borders, addressing the crisis of readiness within our military, achieving energy security and independence, and checking the economic, cultural, and military power of the Chinese Communist Party, becoming further entangled in a territorial dispute between Ukraine and Russia is not one of them.
Now, this answer sparked a lot of backlash from GOP lawmakers who all had basically the same thing to say. Take a listen.
It's not a territorial dispute in the sense that any more than it would be a territorial dispute if the United States decided that it wanted to invade Canada or take over the Bahamas. Just because someone claims something doesn't mean it belongs to them. This is an invasion.
DeSantis is completely wrong on this. This is not the time to get weak in the knees on Russia, which is what he's doing.
What's going on in Ukraine today is not a territorial dispute. It's a Russian invasion.
That last voice was former Vice President Mike Pence, another possible candidate for president, pushing back on DeSantis and echoing what he told Tucker last week about his support for Ukraine. He also said the Republican Party has no place for Putin apologists. I'm joined now by the president of the Ukrainian Club of Syracuse University, Taras Kolopelnik. Taras, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Luke.
So I want to get your reaction to these comments by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who's likely going to be a presidential candidate on the Republican side. What is your response to him calling this war in Ukraine a territorial dispute?
You know, my first thought is, well, it very well might be in his eyes. That's a valid sentiment for a lot of Americans to have. It's very far away. They don't understand the context oftentimes of it. But then my question would be to him, and so what if it is? Are we okay with having the largest scale conflict since World War II in Europe, whether it's a territorial dispute or not? Are we okay with that happening on the European continent with missiles landing within kilometers of NATO territory, with the risk of this war, the longer it's prolonged, spilling over into other nations? That would be my response to Governor Ron DeSantis on that.
Thank you, Taras. Jake and Ericka, the war in Ukraine has been going on now for over a year with no clear end in sight, and the first Republican presidential primaries are just 10 months away. Back to you guys.
Luke, thank you. Last week, President Biden issued an executive order that would increase background checks on firearm sales. Biden announced this in Monterey Park, California, where there was a mass shooting back in January. Talking Points analyst Noah Gutfleish is here to discuss the impact of this executive order. Noah?
Thank you. On Tuesday, President Biden issued an executive order that would increase background checks and require one for every firearm purchase. The executive order also wants to educate the public about red flag laws, which allow firearms to be confiscated from people who show signs of using them for harm. In addition to the main two provisions, the executive order asks for the Attorney General to look into firearm dealers who do not always perform background checks. Biden calls the executive order common sense and says that the bipartisan gun control bill passed last year will help curb the gun violence along with this executive order. In 2022, the United States had 647 mass shootings, the second most behind 2021. And there have also been multiple mass shootings in 2023, notably the Michigan State shooting, the Monterey Park shooting, and the Half Moon Bay shooting. Biden's rhetoric on gun control has been a bit harsher, as he has called for an assault weapons ban and has put major focus on gun control. Biden has always been seen as a strong voice for gun control, as he authored the Clearing Crime Bill in 1994, which had the original assault weapons ban. And according to CNN exit polls, in 2022, gun policy was a top issue for 11% of voters, who backed Democrats by 23 points. Gun control will continue to be a top issue in 2024, and many voters have been supportive of the Biden administration's actions to curb gun violence. Jake and Ericka, back to you.
And still to come on Talking Points, TikTok continues to be a major talking point for U.S. lawmakers. We will discuss the possibility of banning the app and what the future may hold for TikTok. Stick with us.
Here's to the straggly ones, the first ones. Hey, I look good with this ones. The black, brown, red, and gray ones. The itchy ones. The ones grown by Dad. The ones grown for Dad. The I nearly didn't do it this year ones. And the absolutely filthy ones. They all raise awareness, raise funds, start conversations, and save lives. Because whatever you grow will save a bro. Learn more at Movember.com.
Welcome back to Talking Points. TikTok continues to be in hot water with the U.S. government, who claims it is harmful to children. The Biden administration is threatening a potential ban on TikTok in the United States if the app's Chinese owners refuse to sell the stakes that they have invested in it.
For years, talks between TikTok and the United States have been in effect, but the company does not see the administration's move as a final order. Talking Points analyst Andrea Rose-Oates is here to tell us why the app is in talks of being banned in the first place.
Thank you, Ericka and Jake. The push to ban TikTok, a video sharing app that allows users to create their own viral content, is being largely led by the Republican lawmakers who are concerned about Tendance, a user sharing data that tracks browsing history, location, and other harmful efforts. The concerns are all centered around TikTok's Chinese ownership, who claims the app is not a threat to any type of national security. Wang Weibin, a Chinese political diplomat and spokesperson, made a statement about the issue at a recent press conference, saying the U.S. side should stop spreading false information on the issue of data security, stop unreasonably suppressing the enterprises concerned, and provide an open, fair, just, and non-discriminatory business environment for enterprises of all countries to invest and operate in the U.S. TikTok's chief executive, Shou Zi-Chew, is also set to testify before Congress this week. The Biden administration already has the power to oversee the app through the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, which is run by the Treasury Department and reviews foreign investments for issues such as national security concerns. News of the administration proceeding with the ban comes nearly a week after the White House endorsed a bipartisan bill in Congress that would allow the federal government to ban technology that is produced abroad, such as TikTok.
So, Andy, why has TikTok been such a big talking point for the Republican Party in specific?
Well, Jake, over the past 2 years, the Republican Party has heavily been criticizing the Biden administration and how they've been handling national security concerns on apps such as TikTok. More recently, GOP critics have traced the app all the way back to a Chinese spy balloon that made its way here to the United States. It is a really heavy concern for them, considering the fact that the app is intended for ages 13 and up, and children could be giving away their personal information without even realizing it, or they could be having access to it on or off the app. In his final year of his presidency, Donald J. Trump tried to ban the app, but it was ultimately stopped by the Commerce Department, who is currently facing a big lawsuit.
Andrea, thank you. The state of Ohio filed a federal lawsuit on Tuesday against Norfolk Southern over the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio last month. Ohio State Attorney General Dave Yost outlined numerous alleged state and federal law violations against the train company. Here in the studio to break down the upcoming lawsuit is Talking Points analyst Dominic Chiappone. Dominic, what are some of the state of Ohio's claims against Norfolk Southern?
Ericka and Jake, during his Tuesday press conference to reporters, Ohio's Attorney General confirmed this lawsuit was specifically designed to hold Norfolk Southern accountable for its promises. The state of Ohio filed the federal lawsuit earlier last week, shortly after two major developments. First, Norfolk Southern CEO Alan Shaw's hearing in front of the U.S. Senate, and second, after the company announced broad changes to its policies on safety, regulation, and benefits for workers. Now, during that press conference, Yost outlined 58 counts of numerous federal and state violations, in addition to violations of Ohio's Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation, and Liability Act. Yost said the derailment in East Palestine was entirely avoidable and elaborated that, quote, he is concerned Norfolk Southern may be putting profits for their own company above the health and safety of the cities and communities they operate in. Now, on the same day as the press conference, Norfolk Southern sent out a press release stating that the company is quote, making progress on cleaning the derailment site, adding that it is currently providing funds and investment in all of those communities impacted by the East Palestine train derailment. Now, moving forward, the company will need to push back against allegations for violations of Ohio's hazardous waste, water pollution, solid waste, and air pollution control laws. And Eric and Jake, this doesn't even include a lawsuit last Thursday filed in Pennsylvania, which is looking for damages for compensation dating back all the way to October 2020, or any lawsuits filed by local communities. So obviously, there is a lot to sort out here over the next couple months.
And Dom, you know, in the wake of this derailment impacting so many communities, can Norfolk Southern properly even pay for the damages caused?
Ultimately, the biggest challenge when you're looking at this is how do you put a price on this? Because obviously there's the immediate short-term effects from the chemical releases in the environment and what's been going on kind of in that area. But you look at the long-term effects in terms of the environment, you look at those communities that are going to be impacted, especially those who will live there for a while. I think the challenge is going to be, first, you have to try to put a specific price on the damage is done. But at the same time, you also have to consider, is Norfolk Southern actually going to be held accountable in creating change and doing more than what it's been doing so far, which is basic press releases discussing eventual initiatives.
Dominic Chiappone, thank you. Coming up on Talking Points, France has seen civil unrest after President Emmanuel Macron announced he's raising the country's retirement age. We'll discuss the effects of the decision after the break. Stay with us.
Meet Norm. He lives with anxiety, but with the help of this latest innovation from Be Normal, he can be normal, just like everyone else. With the swipe of a finger, you can project happiness, confidence, machismo. Why settle for being real when you can be normal? The Normal Maker. New from Be Normal. This item doesn't really work because there's no such thing as normal. We're all different. What we like, how our brains work. In fact, 1 in 5 of us live with mental illness. Don't filter who you are. Start by talking to someone you trust. And remember, there is no normal.
Welcome back to Talking Points. Protests have erupted across France this week as President Emmanuel Macron announced he is raising the country's retirement age from 62 to 64 years old. Although the bill was passed by Macron, polls from the French Institute of Public Opinion show that 83% of young adults are strongly against the bill.
Talking Point senior analyst Olivia Maniscalco joins us to discuss the civil unrest. So Olivia, can you tell us a little bit about the vote?
Yeah, so rival parties in the government are trying to make a vote of no confidence against this bill, but it is unlikely that it will be passed because they would have to get support from many different sides of the government.
Yeah, Olivia, I think that's an interesting point, too, to talk about the French government because they'll benefit from this if it passes. They have 2 more years of not having to pay people pensions. They have 2 more years of people in the workforce helping the French economy, which they need right now after some different trade talks with the U.S.
And it's so difficult because there's so many workers right now in transportation and energy who benefit from, having certain benefits within the pensions, but it's definitely going to be a pull between the two to see, what the government will do to benefit those people in these industries, but also find a way to subsidize with the government. But that's all the time we have for you on this episode of Talking Points. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CitrusTV News and like us on Facebook. I'm Ericka Love.
And I'm Jake Morel. Have a great night, Syracuse.